Howdy, folks. Welcome back to, I guess, episode 3 now. Correct, Jack?
Episode 3.
Episode 3 of the Kentucky Roundball Roundup. My name is Zack Geoghegan. We have Jack Pilgrim with us, as always. Today is going to be, I guess they've all been very news-heavy episodes, but today a little bit more so because the last 24 hours for Kentucky sports fans have been something to see, not in a good way either. So it started off, obviously, with the unfortunate passing of John Larmon yesterday morning. Today is Friday that we're recording this. So yesterday morning that happened. Kind of came as a shock to everyone, I guess. Obviously, Schlarman's been dealing with that for a while and hasn't exactly been with the team in the same capacity he had been. So still tragic news, though, to hear that. And the news kind of continued on throughout the day as Matthew Mitchell retired late last night. That kind of shocked everyone just as equally, obviously for different reasons, though. So it's been an interesting 12 hours. We're not going to talk about the football team, but we just thought we'd at least bring that up, that situation, because it is very, very sad.
Give it the attention it definitely deserves. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's we got plenty to talk about because the Matthew Mitchell news coincidentally broke last night during the men's team's pro day. So probably what we're going to be doing today, sorry, my phone just went off, is we're going to be breaking down pretty much just those two things. That's probably all. I think we'll have plenty of stuff to dive into today for those two topics. So might not cover much other stuff, but I feel like that's going to be more than enough to get to. So Jack, why don't you go ahead and say hello?
Well, hi, how are you? I'm very glad to be here again. I appreciate your little introduction here and looking forward to another, it kind of sucks that we kind of have to start this on such a negative note because, I mean, you know me, I'm kind of the eternal optimist. I'm like all, happy dandy about pretty much everything. I can find some sort of positivity about everything. But yesterday, that was pretty much a big old crap sandwich that the University of Kentucky fan base and just the UK athletics family was fed. When we woke up, starting with the John Schlarman news, it's pretty obvious that we were headed that route. I mean, when they end the Tennessee streak with him getting the game ball, how celebratory that was, how big of a moment that was, it kind of felt like that was his last hurrah. It really did. He missed the Missouri game, he missed the road trip, and then he wasn't even in attendance for the Georgia home game in back-to-back weeks. And the more the coaching staff and the players continue to say, we really need you guys to pray for them. We really need you guys to have your thoughts with the Schlarman family right now. You could tell that momentum was building in a very negative way, that we were probably headed toward what ultimately ended up happening. So the news broke yesterday early morning. We kind of spent all day kind of sulking a little bit, mourning the loss, kind of celebrating what he brought to the table for the football program, how massive of an impact, dating back to his time as a player, through what he's done with the Big Blue Wall at Kentucky, the offensive line, all that stuff. We just got kind of to all right, let's take a step forward. We got Kentucky basketball to watch tonight. Let's kind of celebrate with each other a little bit. And then, bam, hit with yet another just massive, massive blow for just the UK athletics family. I mean, Matthew Mitchell has become just such a darling for the UK fan base. They've loved watching his, dances at Big Blue Madness. They've loved watching him kind of take that program over and turn it into a perennial contender of, the SEC, somebody that's going to guarantee that they're going to make the NCAA tournament. They're going to compete. They're going to, have success year after year. They're going to bring in exciting players. We've had so much success over the years under Matthew Mitchell, and then all of it just kind of felt like the rug was pulled from underneath it just last night. It was just like the momentum that we talked about this on the show literally the last 2 weeks, saying this is Matthew Mitchell's moment. We finally get his time as with a legitimate title contending team. And they're still going to compete. We'll talk about what this means for the program and how they're still going to, thrive. But this loss can't be understated. This is a huge hit to the UK athletics family. Just, outside of basketball, just what, for him to abruptly announce this decision the way he did, leads me to believe that it was a serious decision on his part, that he had no choice but to make this decision, which makes me just feel even worse about his health status, which makes me just, hurt for his family, hurt for his kids, just trying to figure out, okay, how serious is this brain situation? Have things gotten worse? What is I'm hoping for some clarity at some point in the near future, but as of right now, it's just definitely something that we're all kind of coming together with and going, man, this just freaking sucks.
Yeah. 2 weeks ago, yesterday was his media day. And he talked everything he said, no signs at all of I might be stepping away. And then this morning, they had the introductory news conference between Mitch Barnhart and Kyra Elzy, who will be the interim coach. And we'll obviously talk about her more in a second. But so so I don't even know, what was I saying? I got sidetracked there really quick.
Just the timeline of events, how 2 weeks ago.
Okay, so 2 weeks ago, it seems like it's fine. And then this morning during that press conference, Mitch Barnhart kind of explains the situation and how it came about with Matthew Mitchell, and he said that Mitchell called him Wednesday night, or sometime Wednesday. I don't think he specified during the what time during the day, but sometime Wednesday he called him and said, "Hey, they'd kind of had discussions about this and over the past couple of weeks, it sounded like, but Wednesdays when Mitchell was like, hey, I don't think I can do this anymore. I'm not 100%. It doesn't look like I'm going to be 100%. Who knows if a complication came up within his recovery process or what might have prompted all this. But from Barnhart's perspective, it was kind of a shock to him, because he told him, he was like, all right, well, think about it for the day, sleep on it, come back tomorrow and let me know. And Thursday morning came around and Barnhart said that he was still very confident. Resolute was the word he used. He was very resolute in his decision. Matthew Mitchell was. So it sounds like this was probably something that had been brewing a little bit for Coach Mitchell. But it was definitely a very quick, like a snap thing. Like it took everyone by surprise. You kind of mentioned that you were hearing some rumblings of it yesterday before it happened, but not really.
So it was kind of bizarre, the timeline of events. So Larry Vaught tweeted something along the lines of, I don't think that this is the John Larmon news is not the only hit that the UK family is going to take at some point soon. Something along, it was very, very secretive, but like,
right. Hey,
I would kind of keep your guard up right now. Things aren't going to get any better, at least in the immediate future. So we kind of did, we were doing a little bit of digging, and there were rumors where we did hear that was kind of on the table, that was a possibility, but it was one of those situations where it's like, there's no way, there's just no way that this is going to happen right now, right before the season starts, after so much momentum and so much positivity, about how good this team is going to be 2 weeks before the season starts, and he's going to pull the plug.
Well, let's talk about just the overall timing of it in general, because it did happen during the news did break in the middle of that pro day.
Yeah.
In the very middle of the pro day, it broke, or maybe it was at the very beginning. So
the very middle, 8:00. Yeah. 7:30 to, well, yeah.
7:30 to 9 was pro day, right?
It was 7 to 8:30. So smack dab in the middle.
Right in the middle. So, and they released it right at 8. So that was kind of a thing that they'd planned out to release it that night. So, but for it to kind of happen, if he 2 weeks before this, less than 2 weeks now, we're looking at the 25th. The schedule hasn't come out yet. I would anticipate that that's going to happen sometime soon, especially now that they've transitioned from coaches. Hopefully that's going to, I think they're waiting on that SEC more so to get that news, but hopefully that can come out today. So, but with 2 weeks left until the season, they needed to either make this decision. They had to make it now. Like they couldn't have gone on next week and continue to do this. So just, it made sense, the timing of doing it right now, but it was also like, why right now? Because you kind of explained the whole deal with having Ryan Howard National Player of the Year, a preseason top 10 team. Like, could he not have, and even, it was even posed in the press conference this morning, was he not thinking about maybe just taking a year off or something, or maybe staying in some capacity? And, from what Barnhart was saying and what Mitchell said in his statement the other day, it just, he's done. He doesn't sound like he's going to be back to 100% health within any time soon. I'm sure you and I kind of talked about this yesterday through text, but the COVID situation probably had a little bit to do with it as well. Like, if we weren't in this whole pandemic, would Matthew Mitchell have still retired? Would that have still, those type of things? Obviously we won't know. We don't know. We probably won't know for a while what the actual deal was, but for the immediate implications they're huge because of how good this team can be and what Coach LZ is going to inherit. And she is inheriting a top 10 team. It really doesn't get much better, honestly, if you're trying to be a first year coach. So, but if there's anyone that has kind of the tools to do it, she's definitely in a perfect situation for it.
Yeah, and before we kind of transition into the new administration and how things are kind of going to transition, I will say I've kind of been following. I've kind of had an inside look on Mitchell's career over the last several years. We have a close family friend that is very close to the situation and knows how things are run, and it's a. So I've kind of gotten an inside look at how Matthew Mitchell's brain works and how his daily life works. And when when things settled last night and I kind of got to sit down and think about, okay, how did we get to this point? It really ended up making sense for me because I had heard over the years that he is a wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, get going, run out. Hey, I need you to go pick this up. I need you to go pick this up. I'm going to do this. I'm going to be at the office at this time. We're going to be going this. It is a never-ending 110% cycle for Matthew Mitchell. He is a guy that he just doesn't have an off switch. Constant work. And I mean, there's a reason that his success, the recruiting success that the team, I mean, the adversity that he's overcome with, just the team, the team dynamic, losing out on transfers out of the program several years back, being able to still kind of mold that team to what it ended up being. I mean, just how he has embraced adversity and how he has embraced just work ethic. There's a reason that he is Matthew Mitchell right now and that he has gained the stardom that he has. It's because he has earned it. He has worked his ass off from the time he got on campus to the time that he just left yesterday. So knowing that he doesn't have an off switch, that he is constantly trying to better the university, kind of knowing that from behind the scenes, kind of looking at it now going, okay, he's probably looking at this situation going, I am either, if a doctor can't tell me, hey man, you probably need to slow down. You're going through something serious right now. This is a very, difficult time for your body. You need to heal. You need to slowly progress back. He probably in his heart didn't think that he could, he didn't want to give anything less than 110%. If he wasn't 110%, then he wasn't doing what was best for the program. So in his heart, he probably thought, I personally can't fulfill the job that needs to be done at the University of Kentucky. I want somebody that I trust more than anybody to take that role over while I, let go and, kind of get my life back, because he is a guy that has been basketball driven for a very long time. And I kind of look at that John Larmon situation. I really do. I look at that situation, look at his coach. I mean, he's another guy that woke up every day, eat, slept, and drank football all day, every day. That was his whole life. And, he said a couple quotes there at the end of his life and kind of said, I'm starting to value these fishing trips with my son a lot more. I'm starting to, understand the value of life just a little bit more. I'm kind of seeing things a little bit more clearly. And I don't want to say that maybe Matthew Mitchell got scared, or if it was or if it was just a flat out realization that life is way too damn valuable to be going 110%. And potentially, I don't know if there was a worry about long-term, stroking out or being too, whatever the case is with his health. I don't know if he just looked at that situation and said, I don't want to keep going, and then boom, be done. I don't want to say that he was scared, but he might have been scared with the whole situation and said, man, my kids are young. I want to be with my kids. I want to be with my wife. I love the program more than anything. There's a reason that they are where they are right now, but I genuinely think that life just got too damn important for him to potentially risk it. And if that is the reason, and I think that very well might be, I applaud him. I think it's a noble thing to kind of look at yourself in the mirror and be like, my wife's way too important. My kids are way too important. My life is way too important to potentially risk this. So I'm long drawn out way of saying I understand it if that's what it came to.
I think it's fair to say that he was definitely scared. I think that's absolutely fair to say, and I think he'd probably agree with that. And he even said in his press release that the major things that kind of led to him were family. That was one of the major things. And, he's got 2 young girls and his wife, and I'm sure that was probably the biggest reason why, is he, like everything you just said, he didn't want to let that kind of stuff pass him by. And, he's changed as a coach over the last 13 years, and he's kind of done, it almost feels like he's kind of done everything that he can do. I mean, obviously you could have taken that, maybe get to a Final Four, but any future success that this program has will be because of him.
He will get a hell of, if this team goes on a Final Four run, or next year's goes on a Final Four or championship run.
Yeah,
we're gonna give Matthew Mitchell his flowers.
It's absolutely to his credit. Before he got here, the team was horrendous. They didn't have anyone good. Before, I think Valerie Still was in the 80s.
Yeah,
and then they went about 20 years without being even a remotely competitive team, and then quickly he transformed them into an Elite 8 team in just a few years. So, and then he had the whole exodus of players and completely reinvented how he goes about coaching, and went from losing half his team to creating a team that went to the second round of the NCAA tournament in 2 years. So he's done a lot of stuff as far as coaches can do. He learned under Pat Summitt. He's seen more than most. So he's definitely fulfilled probably most of what he set out to do. And that was probably part of the reason he's like, you know what, I've done enough. I would have liked to have won a title, I'm sure, get that last monkey off his back, but he did more than enough for the program. And like I said, any future success for the coming years will be solely due to the foundation that Mitchell has established.
Yeah, I think the word you described was perfect. Fulfilled. I think he's been there, done that. He's made a ton of money. He's been the star of, he's got the celebrity status, and if he's a bright personality. He's a smart guy. He's
not going anywhere from UK.
He's not going anywhere. He's embraced the media persona. He loves his Matthew Mitchell shows, and he loves hosting KSR during the summers. He's a guy that he's going to, when he's ready, when the time comes, he's probably going to take some much needed time off. Mm-hmm. And when he's ready to step back into the spotlight, I guarantee you he's going to do that. And shoot, he might end up returning to the program in a lesser role, just to be around it, to have an impact, to have a voice, but still let the foundation and the momentum kind of still move forward without risking his personal health, but still be a part of the success. I think we're going to see some time off from him, where he's going to recover. He's going to get some good family time, and I think he's going to be back in that media spotlight, whether he is in the media as a radio or podcast voice or TV voice, or he's going to physically be inside the program, which I think either of those options would be fantastic for him.
And I think that's absolutely going to happen. During the press conference this morning, someone asked Barnhart, what's the potential that he kind of comes back in some form, in some position within the program, whether it's, through the radio network or within the actual team. And Barnhart was like, kind of like, yeah, we're going to keep those options open, obviously, because if Matthew Mitchell tells Mitch Barnhart in a year that he wants to come back and help the program, they're going to let him do that. So, right. And I don't like, he still loves basketball. He's going to come back in some capacity. He's going to take, like you say, he's going to take some time off. And I would be shocked if he's not back in some form or capacity with, connecting with the Big Blue Nation somehow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm excited for the future, but I'm also praying like hell and thinking really hard about their family and making sure that I'm hoping everything's okay, and that this is just a personal decision, not a long-term legitimate health reason. I'm really hoping that this was just a kind of an epiphany on his part, that he just wants to focus on family and life a little bit more than any potential long-term legitimate health issues.
Right. Well, before we drag the mood down anymore, let's transition to Kyra for a second and talk about what I think she's going to bring to the team, how she kind of has this very, very quick turnaround rate that she's going to have to try and do all this. So what do you know about Coach Elsie? Because I've done some research. This is actually, I'll explain my story about how I had a conversation with her yesterday morning, but I've done some research over her in the last couple of days. So what do you know about her? Just off
that trust and that she's had such a vital role in recruiting and has just kind of been Mitchell's right-hand woman there for so many years now. And when you get that level of trust with your head coach, it kind of makes big decisions like this come a little bit easier. And knowing, I mean, she's a star in coaching. I mean, Matthew Mitchell wouldn't be willing to hand her the reins of a program of this stature and a team of this magnitude if he didn't think that she could take this over successfully and potentially lead this team where it needs to be, and that's the Final Four. So that, I mean, just as a very vague kind of above surface understanding of the situation, she is a future star. I mean, probably current star in the coaching ranks right now, and I would be willing to bet that she is ready to take over a situation as big as this.
So just from her chit-chatting this morning with all of us, the smile on her face was that of, this was the job that I was born to do. She was very much confident in everything that she said. She was eager, smiling, happy. She wants this job. She's ready for it. So what we need to know about Coach Elsie is the recruiting thing is big. Like you said, that from what I've found out, she is a massive, massive recruiter. This will be her first head coaching job. She's had a bunch of assistant coaching positions. She brought Kansas, like their first ever top 20 recruiting class when she was there back in the mid 2000s. Her first stint with UK, she helped bring in, or she was more of a developmental coach at that point. But then when she went to back to Tennessee and under Pat Summitt for a few years back in the middle of the 2000s, she brought them a number 3 class, a number 4 class. And then her first couple of years at Kentucky is when she really hit the ground again. She was credited with the Ryan Howard signing, Chastity Patterson, Dreana Edwards. So as far as recruiting goes, I think they're still going to be in good hands because Coach Elsie she's probably the head recruiter for all intents and purposes from the jump anyways. So that part is going to be good for going forward if Kentucky does ultimately decide to keep her on as the official head coach, because she's technically only the interim right now. So we will see how that goes. But as you were kind of implying earlier, part of Matthew Mitchell's reason for doing this was probably like, I have Kyra here who I know is going to be great. She's going to be able to take over, and it's going to be a smooth transition. I won't have to worry about it nearly as much. And another part of that is how Mitchell hasn't been at practice since they've started practice on October 14th. So he's pretty much been away from the program since he's done this, the surgery, which I think was in June or July. So Elsie has been the head coach. She's been as far as the players know, she's been their head coach for the last few months. So in that aspect, they know what she expects of them. The only thing that she even said today that she was going to run a similar similar style of play. It's still going to be a fast-paced. They have a little bit more height in the middle now, so they're going to try and play more inside out, but it's still going to be a lot of run and gun, up the floor, shooting threes, trying to get steals. So a lot of UK's foundation won't change in that aspect.
Yeah, I mean, you rattled off all the accolades and the long-term coaching experience that she's had. When you look at it from Matthew Mitchell's eyes, you look at her and you go, Matthew Mitchell had to start somewhere in his coaching career too. I mean, I remember when he was initially hired at Kentucky, it was kind of one of those. He's he feels like a rising star in this in coaching. this is going to be the platform for him to kind of go into superstardom. And this kind of feels like the same situation where it's just like, she's gotten the experience, she's gotten the recruiting accolades, she's been at big programs, she's been under Pat Summitt. Like when you go down the list of all the little individual things, it kind of feels like Matthew Mitchell had to start at some point. Maybe this is another situation where she finds this is a perfect fit for her. Kentucky doesn't have to be looking very far for their long-term replacement. In fact, I think I genuinely think that this might be the one.
I think she's absolutely the choice. And I should quickly correct myself on something I said earlier. When Matthew Mitchell actually took over the program, they were I forget who the coach's name was, but there was a 2 or 3 year stint where the coach before Mitchell was the shit. Where Kentucky was seen as a team, they were on the same trajectory that Matthew Mitchell has them on the last few years. So he didn't necessarily inherit he actually inherited a really good team. The coach before, I remember, left she'd actually got burnt out, was kind of the situation. So she left and then Matthew Mitchell took over. So he kind of had a foundation as well, the same way that Kyra does. So there wasn't much of a lapse in loss of talent and production. So it's hopefully they kind of mirror each other in that way as well. So I just wanted to quickly rectify that because I completely forgot to mention all that.
But the point remains that the program as a whole,
right?
They've had
Matthew Mitchell brought the program up.
Individual positive and successful teams, but the program as a whole was not at the status and consistent nature that it is right now.
Yeah. They could have potentially gotten there had the former coach not stepped down, but Matthew still got them there. He took over and still got them there. So, and let's kind of what else do I want to talk about, Coach Elsie, real quick? Okay. So yesterday morning, I had a conversation. I just chatted with her on Zoom for about 35, 40 minutes. Unbeknownst to me that she was about to become the head coach a mere hours later. So. She didn't really sneak. I would imagine she knew if Matthew Mitchell told Barnhart on Wednesday. I would imagine that she knew yesterday morning. Maybe not though. Maybe this was like a thing she figured out during the day. But from what I could tell, she didn't exactly spill any beans about it. But I did kind of ask her. I was like, so you've been the coach for the last few months. Has this kind of made you look forward to potentially taking over as a head coach one day? And she was like, well, if the time comes, then it comes, and I'll just wait for the opportunity if I get it. And so now I'm going to go back and listen to that audio and see if she even maybe dropped a couple hints that I just completely looked past. But she broke down, I had her break down every single player on the roster for me. So I'll have more stuff on that on the site later. But she knows this team inside and out, probably better than Matthew Mitchell does right now, if we're going to be completely honest, just because he wasn't there. So her taking over it's not going to change much as far as day-to-day stuff goes. I imagine she'll try and throw her own wrinkles into the offense as well. Matthew Mitchell didn't really have a big post-size player the last few years. So now Coach Elsie's going to have that. And there's going to be, the pressure is definitely going to be on for her. It's going it's an ideal situation to inherit a roster that has a National Player of the Year and can go 10 deep and all that stuff. So, but at the same time, now you have a top 10 team with a National Player of the Year. So Matthew Mitchell or not, Kentucky fans are still expecting this team to try and get to another Elite Eight this year, maybe even a Final Four, if not next year. So the pressure is going to be on. From what I can tell, she seems very excited and eager to take on the challenge. But it's going to be, there's going to be a lot of tests that she's going to have to go through this first year. Thrown into the fire, we'll say.
Yeah, and I think another thing that should definitely be mentioned is the fact that kind of spilled the beans a little bit with you about two potential additions that Kentucky could still keep their eye on that could legitimately take this team from Sweet 16 level to legitimate contender.
Yeah, so I asked her about the status of the transfers, Jasmine Massengill and Robin Benton, and unlike all the other responses I get from UK, she kind of was like, well, we're going into the season not expecting them to play, but we are, I don't want to put words into her mouth. I haven't exactly gone back and listened to that audio yet. I probably should have before I did this, but she told me that there was still hope out there. She implied that the waivers are still open and they're still waiting for him. So she didn't say no by any means. Did she say no? So I've talked to Matthew Mitchell and Evan Crane, the SID, a couple other people. No one has ever given me an answer like hers, where she was like, "Well, yeah, we're still kind of keeping our options open for it, and they're ready. They're ready to play if they need to play." So,
and we've talked about that on this show several times, that adding those two to the fold, adding them into the fold would definitely take them into, I don't know if we want to put Final Four championship level expectations on them this year.
mm-hmm.
This would kind of, especially with the coaching change, it would definitely be they have contending potential. Let's see where things go. Definitely NCAA tournament, Sweet 16, Elite 8 potential. Right away. Just out of pure potential, teams like that. I mean, teams with that much potential, they're gonna rack up wins.
Ryan Howard alone makes the Sweet 16
They're
team.
They're going to make a run. It's just how deep can that run be? So I don't want to put that level of expectation on them right away, even if they do get both these transfers approved. But next year is definitely, if they can get their feet underneath them and kind of develop, mesh into this program and kind of learn together as a collective unit, and they're all returning next year, I definitely think that we're going to be looking at this situation next year and going, wow, this is going to be, Final Four championship level for sure.
And I definitely don't envy her position at all. As much as I think it's a good a good situation, like all those, especially if those two transfers come in, that's going to be 12 players she's going to have to try and figure out, minutes for who's earned her the roles. It's not going to be easy when you have 12 players that can all play to tell 5 of them that they're not going to play. So she's going to have to deal with that too. There's going to be a lot of situations as a first-year head coach that she's, never had to deal with before because she's never been in that situation.
Yeah, but again,
managing egos and stuff like that. But this team seems very tight-knit and well put together. And from what I can tell, it doesn't seem like there's going to be any issue of, power balance and stuff like that.
Yeah. I trust Matthew Mitchell's judgment on this call. Just, if
Barnhart signed off on it too.
And especially that. It's kind of one of those situations that if John Calipari made an abrupt retirement decision or something like that, where, we have that trust in Cal mindset, and Cal said, "Oh, I'm leaving and this is the guy that's replacing me," it'd be one of those situations that we look at it and we go, all right. If Calipari looks at it and he immediately looked at this individual and said, "You're going to be the person to take the reins over," it's just one of those situations that you got to look at it and go, all right, if that's who Mitchell thinks is capable of taking over this program and leading the star power and with all the expectations that they have, then there's obviously a reason for it. So I'm going to trust his judgment and trust his decision and assume that this was 100% the right call.
And it's no small feat that that LC will become a black head coach. It's, I think, a bunch of positions in college basketball this year got filled by black head coaches. So all good news all around in that aspect for her. So do you want to kind of move on to Pro Day or?
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
We've kind of gotten, we got some little bit of optimism right there with, toward the end about where this team could be, the women's team could be heading, and how we got to take this situation and kind of run with it and look at the bright side. And I don't know if you can even go to a better bright side than looking at what we saw last night with the Kentucky men's basketball team. Because holy crap, there was just so much to look at and so much to enjoy. I mean, you go and you kind of replay the event in your head and you think, okay, who were the biggest standouts? Who kind of took the games over and the scrimmages over and the little individual drills over that made you go, That's why this team could be a title contender. Oh, there, that too. I think you first look at BJ Boston. BJ Boston at 6'7", 180, 185 pounds, has the length, but has the scoring ability that I'm telling you he's going to be in the Malik Monks of the world, the Jamal Murrays of the world, the high profile scoring guards that we've seen come across our TVs and Rupp Arena floor at Kentucky. I'm just telling you, his shot is just so pure. I mean, he has a work ethic where he's just in the gym so often. He gets up so many damn shots that it's just like the work that he is. It's not a surprise. The work he has put in. It's like, you know, A plus B equals C. I mean, what he does in the gym translates to directly to on-court success. He works nonstop on his jump shot. So why, you know, what other expectation you have other than, holy crap, he keeps hitting shots over and over and over again. I mean, when he hit that, the 5-minute drill where it was just 3-pointer after 3-pointer, I mean, it was just one after the other. Just absolutely beautiful shot. I definitely think he's going to be that guy that he's going to have a 30-point game, or he's going to have a 35-point game. Just one of those games where he just can't miss, and he just kind of, you know, takes a game over, you know, probably even a high profile matchup, because he, you know, coming from Sierra Canyon, being alongside Bronny James and Zaire Williams and, you know, Dwayne Wade's son, you know, when you look at what he has already been through and the kind of spotlight he has already been in, he is born ready for the spotlight that's going to come at Kentucky. He's already gone through it. I mean, being in the LeBron James spotlight is on that same wavelength of the Kentucky basketball spotlight, where you are always having an ESPN camera shoved in your face. Always. There was a national television broadcast or local broadcast or national reporters at every single game that BJ Boston played in because of Bronny James. So seeing what we saw last night is not a shock at all. That's what we all expected because of how, you know, born ready he was for this. Or what's the built different, the UK slogan. Yeah. So he is very much in the, you know, the talks for a reason, because he has earned that right. And as we saw last night, I mean, he's just so skilled, so gifted dribbling the ball. And I mean, it's not just shooting either. I mean, he just does so many dynamics. He had like 2 dunks on people last night where, I mean, just, he does things where it's just like, whoa, that dude's going to be making a lot of money in 8 months. A lot of money. He's going to be a top 10 draft pick, whether we like it or not. So enjoy him while you can, because his time in Lexington is not going to be lasting long. I promise you. Outside of Boston, I mean, I think you got to look, another guy that kind of took my attention, that kind of my eye just automatically went to him every time he was on the floor, was Isaiah Jackson. I mean, Olivier Sarr gets all the hype. Keon Brooks is the returner, or the returnee from last season, the only rotation, you know, guy from last season team. And I sit here going, I don't see a route. I don't see I don't have any reason to think that Isaiah Jackson isn't going to be, I don't want to say starting, but having starter minutes by the time we get to conference play. I just don't. I just think he's way too talented. He's way too bound. And I think more than anything, he fits so well alongside Olivier Sarr, with Sarr being the kind of skilled, smooth, you know, type big that you can rely on to, you know, to give you offensive production, and kind of put him alongside Jackson, who can, you know, be the rim running guy that can, you know, have some alley-oops, that can, you know, have putback dunks, and he just does all of the perfect complementary work that Olivier Sarr gives you. So I definitely looked at him last night, and I kind of said, okay, I understand why he's getting all this hype. I understand why he is, you know, why every national analyst that watches a Kentucky basketball practice says Isaiah Jackson is the guy. He's the guy that you got to keep your eye on. I mean, because he's just so long, so bouncy, so tall, so strong. I mean, you look at him, I think he's 6'10", 207, 208 pounds, but he looks he looks like he can power through you for like kind of that Bam Adebayo he might weigh less, but he has that core strength to go through you instead of up and around you that I think is going to be so valuable for putback dunks and alley-oop attempts and all the times that he needs to overpower SEC level bigs. I think those were the two biggest takeaways for me, is that A, BJ Boston is as good as advertised, and B, Isaiah Jackson is the hype train that has, kind of created itself over the last several weeks with Isaiah Jackson, I think is legitimate.
And we know that he can't shoot.
Isaiah Jackson?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
the tease that he might be able to shoot threes didn't look like something that I want to see all that often.
Yeah, talking to his high school coach and people that know him and kind of grew up with him kind of said, oh yeah, he kind of thrives with that point forward mindset. And I was kind of looking forward to that, and it's just like, nah, we're gonna keep you where you need to be, but still be a very, very solid contributor.
I still think
let's stick with what you're good at.
Rim running is probably where he'll definitely thrive the most, and I think him working next to Sar will be great if Sar can keep that outside jumper fluid. So I think that
looked good.
Yeah,
that looked very good.
Those two paired together with Sar being able to shoot outside that'll be a great pairing. As far as my takeaways, I'm always hesitant to take anything from stuff like this.
Right.
The BJ Boston thing was obvious, though. That kid's going to be a star. I also, like you kind of talked about, he's been used to the stardom. That's a big thing. You can even tell when he was doing those interviews on the side that, he's been here before.
Yeah. Didn't that sound like an ESPN interview from a person that has done that once or twice in his life? Yeah.
Yeah. He definitely, he's no stranger to all that stuff. So I just that in general it's going to be good for just overall confidence and, just being able to deal with the stress and pressure of playing for Kentucky basketball. So, but I thought Olivier Sarr looked really good, a lot better. We have a bunch of film on Olivier Sarr, but I feel like we're not going to see the same version of him at Wake Forest at all. So that was I feel like what we saw last night was really more what we're going to see from Sarr. But I thought he looked good. Terence Clark. The consensus is that it's going to take some time, and that's kind of what Tom Hart was. Everyone's been saying that, but it kind of was obvious, or it became a little bit more clear that he probably is going to be a little bit of a project, but in no way is he going to be not starting.
And I think he's a guy that you have to. He's one of those guys that Calipari has had in the past that you can't just trust to put out there. And just kind of like BJ Boston, where he's going to do what he does. He's going to score in however way he wants, and you're just going to, kind of like Malik Monk. You didn't have to draw anything up from Malik Monk. He was just going to make magic happen with the ball. He was just going to go out there and do something with it. But Terence Clark is a kind of guy that is talented enough to be a high level 16, 17, 18 point per game scorer at the college level. Absolutely. I definitely think that. But he's one of those guys that you do, potentially have to draw some things up for and kind of give him, put him in ISO situations where he can use his length and quickness to beat guys off the dribble and get and attack the rim. So I think that's going to be the one thing I'll be interested to see if Calipari gives him the coaching and flexibility that he needs to be that high level producer. Right now I think BJ Boston is an 18 plus point per game scorer. I really do. I think he's going to be a 17, 18 point per game scorer. If I were just based on what we're seeing right now, I'd probably be willing to bet Terence Clark is going to average 14 or so, just based off natural gift that he has the strength, he has the length, he has the speed. He's gonna get points just off of his natural abilities, but he can kind of take, and I kind of put that 13 14 point per game scorer as a very solid college basketball player on a contending team. If he wants to be that superstar national player of the year, first team All-American, all SEC type guy in that 16, 17, 18, 19 point per game range. I think Calipari is going to have to get a little creative, let him run point guard, kind of like what we've talked about on this show. Let him have the ball in his hands and create. Let him navigate through some of his issues, navigate through some of his mistakes that he's inevitably going to make, and we'll see where he goes from there. I don't have any strong feeling about his performance last night really at all. I think he's going to be what he is, and I think it is going to be a very highly successful player, but I just don't know if this was the right setting to show that, I guess.
Yeah. And like I said, I try not to take too much from these things unless you get a guy like BJ Boston who just comes out there and flat out done. It's kind of like how I watch Summer League. Exactly. Yeah. It's exactly how I watch Summer League. Like, unless the guy just comes out there and just blows away everyone else, I wouldn't read too much into it, even if they play poorly, just because it's weird circumstance in general. Just that entire situation that was a practice. It wasn't than anything. They did a little bit of 5-on-5 and 4-on-4, but for all intents and purposes, that was a practice. So, and they were doing it in front of a Zoom board, a giant Zoom board
with 80 NBA personnel.
Yeah, like come 80. On now. Imagine if you're like Lance Ware or Jacob Toppin out there trying to make an impact when you touch the ball a couple times. So it definitely, like, those guys, like anything we saw from, I know you were kind of talking about Dante Allen's jump shot, that looks pure. It's beautiful. So that's good news and stuff. But as far as what we actually saw from them in terms of production, I wouldn't read too much into anything.
I will. I do want to ask you what your thoughts. So I think we kind of have a consensus at this point who the top 4-ish guys are. I think we know BJ Boston, Terence Clark, Olivier Sarr, and probably people would argue, oh, it might be Devin Askew, it might be Davion Mintz just because of his experience, blah, blah, blah. But I think the growing consensus is that Isaiah Jackson is going to take over that fourth role at some point. Mm-hmm. At some point soon, maybe sooner rather than later. I want to ask you what you think of those next 4-ish players. Are those guys good enough, in your opinion, to get this team where it needs to be at that national title contending range? And that's Keon Brooks, Devin Askew, Davion Mintz, and Lance Ware probably, but maybe it's Dante Allen coming in and shooting. Maybe it's Jacob Toppin being that athletic freak of nature, going to give you rebounds, going to give you block shots, going to hit a corner 3 every once in a while. But that next core 4, do you think they are good enough to take this team to the next level?
Well, the first name that you said, Devin Askew, that's the name that I would. That's the first name. I even think that if you're creating a top 3 of Boston, Sarr, and Clark, I could almost see Devin Askew being that 4th guy. If you had to have me pick a 4th guy that averages over 10 points, I would probably say it's going to be Devin Askew. Just because I think he ends up taking that role from Davion Mintz as like the overall starting guy. And I just think he'll have too many opportunities to not score that many points. So I think Devin Askew is probably going to be just as good, if not better than advertised. Keon Brooks, I'm a big Keon fan, but the hype when he came back was, we're going to have sophomore Keon, but you don't really hear too much about sophomore Keon. So I'm not going to be, overly hype or bullish on him right now, just because I want to see what he actually looks like.
Okay. Real quick, does Kentucky need Keon Brooks to be the 5th best player on the team to be the title contender? 5th plus. I mean, I'm not saying he can't be the best player. I hope that he's the best player on the court, because that would mean that this team is historically good. If
Keon Brooks is a top 4 player, UK is probably a Final 4 team. If he gets to the 3rd best, like if it's Boston, Sarr, and then Keon Brooks, Kentucky's probably in a very, very good position in that, because in that case, that means Keon Brooks is probably averaging 12 points a game, probably 6 or 7 rebounds. He's probably playing all SEC caliber basketball. And if that's the case, then I think Kentucky's ceiling is insane. But from what we can tell right now, Keon Brooks is probably our 5th, 6th best player. And if he is the 5th or 6th best player, their ceiling probably doesn't drop that much, just because I think the team is going to be powered by Boston and Sar. And if Keon Brooks is our best player, honestly, I don't think that's a good thing. I think BJ Boston has to be the best player, because he's very clearly our best scorer.
Yeah.
So Keon Brooks, for what we know, he might be a much improved scorer, but BJ Boston's going to be our go-to guy. So if Keon Brooks is our fifth best player and is more in a energy role more than anything, I still think Kentucky's just as good if he's the fourth best player, the sixth best player, or whatever. So
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
think there's much difference there in terms of just how much he impacts the team. Having him back as a sophomore is nice, but we're always run by freshmen. This is a freshman team plus Olivier Sarr.
Yeah. And I think most people kind of, when he returned, people automatically put that PJ Washington sophomore jump on him.
That's not fair.
I don't think that's fair to him at all.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, I'm hoping for it. I think
PJ Washington showed signs of being as good as he was, though.
I think he
took
could.
Keon into the last game.
But and again, I'm not going to be having any huge takeaways, but I was expecting him to shoot a little bit better last night. I was expecting him to the shot still kind of has that hitchy kind of too much. I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain why I don't like the look of his jump shot and why it's just a little bit. There's too much going on in his shot that I think it doesn't have the kind of that same Ashton Hagens where there's just so much of a wind up and a build up that I don't know. There's just something missing with his shot right now that I thought we would see changed this offseason, that it looks exactly the same as it was last year. And that's okay, because I don't think he's ever going to be a star shooter. I think
let's say this. Would you rather have him shoot more than 7 shots a game or under?
From 3 or combined?
Just overall. Would you rather Keon Brooks shoot over or under 7? We'll put it at 7 shots a game.
I would like to see him take 7 shots a game. I want him to shoot 2 threes a game, and I want him to have 5 drive to the basket.
Do you think Kentucky's ceiling is higher if he shoots more?
I think that's kind of a difficult way to put it, because it depends on what kind of shots we're getting with him. Keon Brooks is an athletic monster when he wants to be. When he wants to drive, because he's so fundamentally sound with his basketball ability, I think, in terms of driving to the hoop and kind of being a 6'7" forward that has strength, has built, but still very agile, very athletic, kind of has that quickness to him where he can beat guys off the dribble. I think he kind of has that. He has mismatch written all over him in a very, very positive way, and I want him to realize that. And I think he did against Florida to close out the year. I think he started going, "Oh, I'm faster than a lot of these big guys, but I'm also stronger than a lot of these small forwards out here. I can create mismatches on the court whenever, against anybody. I can be a mismatch against 4s, and I can be a mismatch against 3s. And I think he very slowly started realizing that by the end of the year. And if Kentucky wants to live up to the potential that I think they have, I think he's going to need to continue. I don't think he needs to go back to, revert back to January Keon Brooks or December Keon Brooks. He needs to build off of what we saw leading right up in the SEC tournament. He needs to go, take that Florida game, right, what we saw the last time we ever saw him, and go straight into this year. I mean, we can't see if he reverts, I think he's going to lose his job. I think he's going to lose his job to Isaiah Jackson. I think Isaiah is just too good. He's going to, take that over. And by the time he kind of gets his legs underneath him and he does take back over, it's going to be, Isaiah is going to be Isaiah. He's going to be as good as we kind of think Isaiah Jackson can be. And at that point, he's only going to be the 5th best player on the team, because the other 4 have kind of cemented themselves as the core group. So it needs to be a quick, okay, yep, Keon is who we thought he was type.
And I think we're kind of going on an Alex Poitras trajectory with him, which could be bad. just because of all the potential that Alex Poythress showed, kind of what you were saying, can take threes, can play the 3, can play the 4, could play the 5 if he really wanted to. So there's all that versatility. And it was more of just a will he do it thing. Will he just do it every game? And Alex Poythress, for the most part, did not. Obviously, he had the injury and all that other stuff, but, it just feels like we're kind of in a similar path with Keon. And with all the other, it kind of happened with Poythress too, just all this other talent comes in and you just kind of get pigeonholed behind all these guys. And unless you take a serious leap, you're not like a PJ leap, you're going to kind of be stuck in the same role.
Yeah. So that's definitely the biggest thing probably my biggest takeaway from the event. I really do think that's my biggest thing is all the players we kind of thought were the good ones are the good ones. The ones that we kind of knew were going to be the bench players are the bench players. Keon needs to decide if he's going to be a bench player or one of the good players. I do. I think that which way he goes, if he's going to be in the bottom 4 or the top 4 of the roster, will determine a lot of Kentucky's success. I really do think that.
Mm-hmm. And we'll find out pretty quick. I don't think it'll take but a few games for Cal to be like, you're either doing this or you're not. So
yeah.
And if we've got all this talent waiting behind, like we say we do, then it shouldn't be that difficult for Cal to say, look, Keon, you're not playing well these first 3 games. You're taking the bench seat, and we're going to put Isaiah Jackson in, and you either come back and start being more productive and aggressive, or this is how it's going to be.
Yep. Yeah. And like you said, I think we'll learn very quickly. Big Blue Madness is next week. And then the week after that, season starts.
We are, man.
We have, basketball season is here. So
sure is.
We'll know very, very quickly.
Yep. Well, I think you want to end it here. Anything else you want to add? I think we've talked a lot.
I think we got a good bit of both men's talk and women's talk. I think there was a lot to say about both, and both teams have a lot of reason for optimism going into their respective seasons. Even
very newsy stuff going on with these 2 programs right now. Lots to pay attention to.
Absolutely. Well, this was a lot of fun, and we will be back at it again next Friday, as we usually are. We have stuck to our original schedules, and I guess what is it? Next Friday is Big Blue Madness, I think.
Is it? Yeah, it's probably a Friday, right? I would imagine it's a Friday.
Okay, so I believe so. We'll have to double check that. But maybe
we should do a preseason primer, since the season starts next Wednesday. Maybe do like a Wednesday or a Tuesday thing just to kind of get it going.
Yeah, we will. Yeah, we'll
maybe do a recap some Big Blue Madness as well.
Let's do it. I'm all the way for it. Before we end it here, where can fans find your work?
They can find me on Twitter at Geoghegan KSR. Geoghegan is spelled Geoghegan. Go follow your boy.
You need to
follow
on
KentuckySportsRadio.com,
because he has a bunch of good stuff. Momentum is building for the Zack Geoghegan hype train. We are excited about his future.
Isaiah Jackson vibes.
So he's the Isaiah Jackson of the KSR group. You can find me on Twitter at Jack Pilgrim KSR. Find my work on KentuckySportsRadio.com. Reach out to me via email at jpilgrim@KentuckySportsRadio.com. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, you want to make fun of Zack, you want me to make fun of Zack, just let me know. That's a great way to do it. And we'll be back next week for another one. Let's do this.